With just a shake of the sieve, an experienced worker can determine whether these clams are alive or dead. Besides ensuring they are alive, every clam leaving the farm must go through 5 rounds of sorting and expelling the dirt from its body. You might think that's all, but from birth to leaving the pond, these small clams go through countless hardships. There are many types of clams on the market, the most common being manila clams, striped clams, white clams, square clams, and others. Although their appearance and lifestyle differ slightly, the method of preparing them for production is almost identical. It involves intimidation. A magical phenomenon occurs in clam farms when the weather suddenly changes. The ones that die are often the larger clams. Could this be because they are old and weak? Of course not. The main reason smaller clams survive is that they haven't matured yet. When external factors like water temperature change, mature clams immediately enter production mode. Sacrificing the large for the small is a decision clams make themselves. Farm-raised manila clams reach sexual maturity in 1 to 2 years. After reproduction, they face death. Therefore, the key to artificial clam breeding. The key is to stimulate them, to prevent genetic degradation. Breeding farms try to avoid inbreeding. Clams with clean genetic backgrounds are grouped together under cold water stimulation. The clams gradually begin releasing sperm and eggs. Most clams are hermaphrodites. The freshly released eggs collide with nearby sperm in seawater to form fertilized eggs. Workers then transfer these fertilized eggs to hatchery tanks. In breeding farms for clams, these newborn creatures must stay away from light. Of course, there are no other species involved here. The fertilized eggs need to develop in seawater. During the process of adding seawater, it inevitably brings in foreign organisms. These foreign organisms, accustomed to sunlight, cannot perform photosynthesis here. Their impact on clams is greatly reduced. In a suitable environment, the immobile fertilized eggs begin to move after a few hours. Their transformation is not instantaneous. These white specks floating in the water look nothing like clams, no matter how you look at them. The first step in a clam's transformation is to turn itself into a larva. Larvae of clams successfully hatched in seawater drift along with the currents. During this process, they develop carefully, feeding on algae to sustain themselves. They wander around, searching for a suitable place to settle down. If all goes well, in 8 to 9 days they will transform further, finding a fertile soft mudflat as their anchoring spot. In many places, wild seedlings are used for clam farming. Fishermen sift them out from the sand and sell them to farmers for cultivation. Seedlings from breeding farms, on the other hand, are relocated at least 3 times to help them grow faster. Attentive workers provide them with various types of algae. Golden algae, green algae, they have more than enough to eat, with their meals fully provided. About a month after birth, the seedlings grow to the size of a sesame seed. This means it's time to move outdoors and face the challenges of nature. Whatever the outcome, their time at the nursery is coming to an end. After 2 to 3 months, the surviving seedlings grow to the size of a fingernail. It's now time for them to leave the nursery and head to their final destination for growth. Workers begin the first round of clam seedling selection. Those that pass can leave the nursery. They must grow to a size of 600 clams per pound. The freshly harvested seedlings are cleaned and sent to the machine simultaneously. Through the back and forth motion of the sieve, the larger seedlings move forward, while the smaller ones fall into the baskets below. Once a basket is filled with small seedlings, they are returned to the pond for further growth, awaiting the next round of selection. To avoid missing any seedlings, workers try to spread them evenly, ensuring all undergo the sieve's test. Qualified seedlings are collected in plastic baskets, ready to be sent to the farm. Not yet. The next step involves manual sorting. Workers remove any debris and discard any lifeless seedlings, ensuring every seedling placed into sacks is alive. After several rounds of selection, they are loaded onto trucks, covered with black fabric to provide shade, preventing heat stroke during transportation. They quickly arrive at the farm. Workers unload the seedlings and place them into plastic baskets. Some are spread onto the rafts to ensure even distribution. Workers line up and scatter the seedlings from one end of the pond to the other. In the wild, clams typically settle in soft, shallow mudflats. If scallops are the swimmers of the sea, then razor clams are definitely the racewalkers. Relying on their strong siphons, they can easily burrow and dig tunnels. They can also accurately predict tides, using their siphons to achieve long-distance movement. They prefer soft mud not because hard ground is impenetrable, but because for an animal with zero combat ability, hiding is the safest option. Exposed to sunlight, their safety decreases dramatically. Look, the seedlings here haven't even been fully planted, and the seabirds over there are already ready to feast. Workers sow at a density of 1–2 million seeds per hectare. With so many seedlings, raising them is no easy task. Razor clam farming isn't as simple as you might think. To raise them successfully, you need to ace your biology class. Every razor clam farm is essentially an algae production base, the food they love to eat. Every milliliter is painstakingly cultivated. Besides regular fixed feedings, workers occasionally ferment extra nutrients as supplements. They carry the feed onto the rafts, and as long as they keep moving, they can evenly distribute food to the razor clams. The more they eat, the faster they grow. In a calm and suitable environment, these little creatures grow very fast. Their shells extend outward along the white growth lines. They keep expanding rapidly. They absorb dissolved carbon dioxide from the water, converting it into calcium carbonate to expand their bodies. Shellfish are great carbon fixers. Environmental organizations should give them an award. However, heavy feeding brings a new problem: water pollution. You must know that razor clams are very sensitive. Even slight environmental changes can be life-threatening. Workers periodically inspect water and sediment quality. They spray probiotics to inhibit harmful bacteria. Additionally, they enlist the help of auxiliary fish and shrimp. These helpers clean up waste. This ensures the water meets quality standards. You might not imagine it, but razor clams that come from mud are among the cleanest seafood on the market. For them, cleanliness is life. Getting sick means there are only two outcomes: either relying on their immune system, or succumbing with almost no treatment. There's virtually no cure. Everything that can be done is done. But whether they can grow successfully ultimately depends on nature. That's why aquaculture is always a gamble. A typhoon, a heavy rainstorm, can easily send farmers back to square one. These razor clam farms are like real-life graveyards for razor clams. The clams harvested are survivors of near-impossible odds. The nearby piles of empty shells are mountainous. The culprit behind this tragic scene is nothing more than a heavy rainstorm. The large amount of rainwater changes the dissolved oxygen and salinity of the pond. Once they are stimulated, mature razor clams seem to switch into reproduction mode. While their mass spawning affects water quality, they may end up killing themselves. Workers closely monitor changes in water parameters. When oxygen levels drop, they immediately activate aerators. They thrive in salinity levels of 20 per thousand to 25 per thousand, and pH levels between 7.5 and 8.5 in seawater. If salinity is too low, workers sprinkle sea salt promptly. If the water becomes acidic, they improve it by adding quicklime or similar substances. Sudden cold or heat is another challenge. In such cases, the clams must adapt on their own. On exposed mud flats, razor clams rely on burrowing to cope with bad weather. In hot weather, they stay near the surface for air. In cold weather, they burrow 10 to 20 centimeters deep into the mud to keep warm. A water temperature of 25 to 30 degrees Celsius is the most comfortable for them. They grow rapidly, almost as if on growth enhancers. After about a year in the pond, razor clams smaller than a fingernail can grow to around 3 centimeters. This means Hay are ready for the table. In 1 year, besides the growth of razor clams, the fish have also grown. These poor fish could never imagine working for humans for a whole year, only to gain nothing in return. In the end, they are sold too, with a fate similar to cattle and horses. At 3 a.m., workers preparing to harvest razor clams are ready at their posts. It must be said that the workers' final act of gentleness is given to the clams, taking them away under the cover of night. Trying to minimize their distress, workers push harvesting machines to conduct a thorough search of the pond. High-pressure water jets flush the buried razor clams from the mud, filtering out excess silt in the process. Compared to manual harvesting, machines are indeed much more efficient. However, in some isolated breeding areas, most of them are scraped up one by one. The harvested clams are uniformly transferred to the pond's edge. First, they are sorted by machine. Clams that are too small are returned to the pond to continue growing. The larger ones are taken away by workers at the export end. Meeting size requirements is only the first test. Next, they undergo 2 rounds of manual selection. Workers pick out any mixed-in debris and visible dead shells. The remaining clams go through a collision test. By listening to the sound of collisions, workers remove well-disguised dead shells. Live clams, when colliding, typically make a crisp sound like pebbles hitting each other. Dead shells, however, sound somewhat muffled. Let's give credit to the workers' keen hearing. To ensure diners don't taste sand, the fresh clams are soaked in prepared saline water before leaving the farm. In this familiar environment, they expel sand and waste. Once the desanding process is complete, workers pack them into plastic bags, vacuum sealed and transported via cold chain to markets in a low-temperature environment. The clams enter a dormant state and quickly reach the hands of chefs. They certainly won't be opening their mouths and laughing. Thank you for watching. See you next time.